Come down. Ooh, you make my high come down. Always tripping when you come around. Never have to cut you out like right now. You see, I don't have to drive me. You can say that for your mama. Maybe you should smoke some. Me try the marijuana. I was loving you good. The vibe was straight. Showed you a couple of things and they feel strange. I treated you right. Everything was a gift from a time to your bag and the color on your lip.
Welcome to the Seahawks Man to Man podcast, powered by Blue Wire. Shout out to the new company. My name is Michael-Shawn You guys can follow me on whatever Elon Musk is calling that app these days. My at name has not changed. At Mike Dugar, that is Mikedugar. Shout out to everyone who is watching or listening via our YouTube channel. Please subscribe and like. Seahawks Man to Man is the name of the channel. That is Seahawks Man, the number 2 man. Follow us on Instagram as well. Seahawks Man, the number 2 man is the handle. And then on TikTok, Seahawks Man, the number 2 man. You get the theme of this by now. It's all the same stuff. Make it simple for you. Appreciate the love and support doing those things. Chris, go ahead and talk to him.
What is going on, everybody? It's your boy, Christopher Kidd. You can follow me on Twitter at CKIDD206, and that's CKid206.
I am coming to you guys from a better lit hotel room. You know, last year I had some bad luck there with some pretty dimly lit rooms. Looked very spooky. I'm in Atlanta, though. We're coming to you a post-game show after the Seahawks beat up on the Falcons, much to my surprise, 34-14. Old school beat them down. Surge in the fourth quarter, made it real lopsided on what was otherwise a mostly competitive game throughout. Chris, they are back in the win column. Seemed like everything went well. They were able to run it. They were able to throw it. They were able to stop the run eventually. They were able to rush the passer. They came into this game with 4 turnovers on the season. So 4 turnovers in 6 games, which was one of the lowest totals of the in the NFL coming into this week. And they had 3 in the fourth quarter alone. So everything that they could have asked for to go well pretty much went well on Sunday, and I cannot think of a more needed win. I was very happy that everyone after the game pretty much admitted, yeah, this win was huge, really needed it, you know, as opposed to the whole, you know, it's just one game, want to go 1-0 every week. That's cool, but you had lost 3 straight. Like, let's keep it funky. You needed to avoid a 4th one. Everybody had friends and family there. Getting your butt whooped with your peoples there, that would have been bad. I'm glad they acknowledged how big of a win this was, because then we can come on here and do the same thing and talk about how huge of a win this was to snap that 3-game skid. And as of right now, the Niners lost. Get back in first place in the NFC West.
Yeah, just a solid victory for this team that has had their ups and downs. And as you kind of mentioned, losing 3 games in a row, back to back. That wears on you, especially you felt, if you're a Seahawks player or a fan, that they were in those games and had opportunities to close the deal, make a play here and there. But I will be negative Nancy. There were still times where they got in their own way. And guess what was leading the forefront of getting in their own way? Penalties. Things that you can't, just tiny mistakes, false starts, getting yourself in trouble, getting yourself behind the sticks and making it a challenge, because I thought they were moving the ball pretty effectively on that first possession. And I thought they were likely going to score a touchdown, but they do score a touchdown, unfortunately. And then A.J. Barner is called for offensive holding, and that knocks them, first and 20, I believe, at the 23. And then it didn't work out. They ended up getting 3. They ended up getting points, but they got in their own way. And that's something that we have discussed ad nauseum through 6 weeks into the season. But to the bigger picture, the only thing that matters at the end of the day is, did they get a W in the win column or an L? And when it was all said and done, as you can see on the bottom of the screen on the ticker, the Seahawks were victorious 34-14. They definitely cleaned up in the second half regarding the run defense, I thought. But in all honesty, when you're down a few possessions, down a few points, the Falcons had to throw the football. Not to discredit what the Seahawks did to that point, but they had to go through the air, and they really did a really solid job of getting in the backfield. I know they had a bunch of missed tackles, but I think as the game wore on, they were able to get multiple bodies near Bijan and try to make it more of a challenge for him to escape. So that was something that I noticed, just having more bodies. Because earlier in the game, he was making dudes miss left and right, and he was getting north and south pretty quickly after making one or two guys miss. I know Devon Witherspoon had a couple of plays in the backfield where he should have had a tackle. Hell, he had one on the sideline that he just missed. So those are things that they still got to get better at. I think they can and they will, but for one guy to have kind of a solid day and making dudes miss, that's something you got to really go back on the tape and say, how can I be better in that scenario? Because James Cook, he's a solid running back. He ain't as shifty and doesn't have the foot speed that Bijan does, but he can make you miss and he can punish you as well. So it'll be interesting to see how they prepare for Buffalo next week, going back and looking at the film, seeing what they did right and what they did wrong, and being better in that phase. And one thing that also stood out to me was I mentioned it on our standout plays of the week was getting after Kirk Cousins. Boy was in 4 feet of sand when the pocket broke down. He just could not move. And the Seahawks took that to their advantage, used that to their advantage, and was able to make multiple plays on him, putting pressure on him, making him throw tough passes, fumbles, all of that. So that was really good to see, because I've just watching Kirk over the past few weeks and then knowing what the Seahawks are capable of doing, I thought, okay, this could be a game where they get after him, make it tough on him. And for the most part, they were able to. Now, they did score 14 points, but they were able to shut it down later on in the game as well. And that was very encouraging to see, especially considering it's the Niners. They didn't have that success. Brock Purdy was able to squirt around and make a few plays, but with Kirk Cousins' inability to move, they jumped on that and pounced on him. And hell, Derek Hall had his first touchdown since high school. So that goes to show just how prepared they were and how locked in they were for this matchup. And to win in fashion the way they did on the road, I think this team definitely is more confident and they're looking forward to the next challenge. But for right now, you enjoy the victory that you had, obviously, in this scenario, if I'm a Seahawk player in that regard, and you soak that one in. And I think they did a pretty solid job in the second half of making it a little more challenging for Kirk Cousins in that offense that has a few weapons.
Yeah, I mean, Kirk unraveled in the fourth quarter. I mean, 3 turnovers all in the fourth. He only had 5 coming into the game.
Yeah,
they completely he fumbled once, threw it to, he just turned it to Nathan Peterman in the fourth. He led 3 drives in the fourth quarter, and they all ended with turnovers by him. And then Michael Penix came in. That was a really masterful job. And I do think they did stop the run before I got out of hand, and I thought that was really key. So here's the Falcons' first drive. Now this first drive of the third quarter. So it does end with a touchdown, but look at some of these run numbers. So it starts off with a tackle for no gain by Leonard. So and then I think a check down to Bijan for 26 yards down the sideline. Spoon misses. Nehemiah Pritchett misses. You got a bad thing. Bijan then runs for 7 yards, right? But then you get Tyler Algier, loss of 1. D Hall, I think, I'm just going by my notes, so I'm not looking at the play-by-play, but I trust myself. So you got D Hall gets a TFL. And then on 3rd and 4, they end up converting. Looks like Mooney gets by Spoon. Spoon had a rough drive. I'm just looking at that now. And then a couple passes. Bijan gets a 9-yard carry, but then he goes backwards 2 yards because of Byron Murphy.
Oh, yeah, Byron Murphy.
And Leonard.
Play.
Yep. And then looks like it was a 3rd and 3 they converted on another pass to Mooney. Yeah, against Jobe. And then another loss on a run, Bijan again. This is Draymond Jones. So look at these names. I'm D Hall, Leonard, Byron, Draymond. Everyone is getting TFLs or tackles for no gain. Even on a 3rd and 2 down near the goal line, they stop Bijan for 1 yard. And then on 4th and 1 from the 5, they throw it to Drake London and score. But I think that drive was important because look at all those TFLs. Look at all those tackles for no gain. I think that was really important because then here's what happens on the next drive. So after that, the Seahawks score. So they're up 2 scores. The Falcons' next drive, it starts with about 3 minutes left in the third quarter. So you don't really you're not like catch-up mode per se. There's 18 minutes left. You can run your offense still if you choose. So you learn a lot about offensive coordinators in this scenario. And their first play on 1st and 10 was a pass. Looks like Draymond Jones batted it down. The very next pass, he gets sacked by Draymond Jones. Then 68, whoever that is, he false starts. Now they're in 3rd and 24. And then they punt, and Seahawks punt it right back. But by then, I think we're in the 4th quarter. We are, and then that's the drive that ends. At that point, you are kind of in hurry up a little bit, and then it ends in a third and 9, where the strip sack occurs that leads to the touchdown. And even that strip sack, they're only in 3rd and 9 because Bijan runs on 1st down and gets nothing. He gets 1 yard. And then I think Drake London goes deep on Julian Love, and it ends up being over his head. That's how you get in 3rd and 9. So I thought even when the game was still within reach, their run defense was good. I think Bijan and Tyler Algier combined for 22 yards on 11 carries in the second half. And then some other guy, third stringer, ended up getting the rest of the carries. I think that was the key. And that's something I thought based on my selection of standout plays that Byron Murphy would have an impact, and he did, which was good. But it wasn't just him. I thought in general, their second half defense against the run was much, much better. And I thought the way they came out and set that tone early, they kind of got the coordinator, I think his name's Zach Robinson. He's from the Rams. They got him a little skittish. He kind of went away from it. He saw those TFLs. He saw those tackles for no gain on that opening drive. And even then after that, he saw the 1 yard run from Bijan. He was like, we got to chuck it. We got to chuck it. So I thought that was really key. They did what other teams have been doing to them, got them away from what should have been their bread and butter, because when they got into a drop back game, they were cooked. So I thought that was very, very important. And a lot of guys, I saw their post games, they mentioned that they didn't change much in the second half. I finally got someone, I think it was Leonard Williams, to give a little bit more detail as to what they did against the run. Leonard said, and I'm quoting him directly here, he said, just stop running lateral. At one point in the game, they tried to get our D-line running sideways. We finally got to a point where we checked in with each other, and we were just like, let's get vertical. Let's knock blocks back. The running backs, they were really good at trying to stay alive. So we were always talking about that 2nd, 3rd, and 4th man in. End quote. So, I mean, that's not a huge schematic change, but it is definitely like, okay, let's become more of a penetrating front, man. Let's go get back there. Because on those wide runs, I don't know how much they talked about it on the broadcast, but when you got those wide runs, you are getting linemen going left and right, which is just not their strength. Those guys are so big and powerful. They're better when they're going forward. But when you get them going sideways, it's much easier to get reached and for guys to hit those creases. And then at that point, you got Bijan and Tyler Algier one-on-one with the DB, or in some cases, it looks like Jerome was just too slow to get to the hole. So they were, he was getting there. So I don't think there was a big schematic change other than what Leonard had mentioned, like, yo, let's get back there and make it shake. And I thought they did a good job of that. And I do think that really changed the game. That first drive in the third quarter, I know it's weird because it ended with a touchdown, so you don't think it necessarily would have done that. But then you go look at the sequencing later. Atlanta, on their drive, I mentioned that they came out throwing after the drive they scored. And it's like, why would you do that? I thought that in real time. I was like, what are they doing? And then now I'm looking back at my chart. I'm like, oh, so I see why. And I thought that was huge because that's what they had been lacking. You mentioned that their first drive could have been a touchdown. You're right. It could have. However, Chris, they led the entire game, start to finish. That is just such a. Can I give some more? Can I give some more numbers here? I'm in a numbers bag, if you don't mind. So these are from a story that's up now on The Athletic. So Geno had 32 dropbacks today. Chris, that is his lowest since week 1. That he had 28 in against the Broncos. Another number here that illustrates kind of how they were able to play the way the other teams have been playing them. Geno only had 10 dropbacks in the second half. Like, he did not have to let it fly. They weren't in catch-up mode, and it made all the difference, I think. I think they should have been able to run it better in the fourth quarter to bleed the clock. I think they only had like 19 yards or something like that. So, obviously not great. But Chris, in the fourth quarter, Geno threw. Let's see. Geno threw in the fourth quarter. He threw 2 passes. 2. Think back with the other games that we've seen against the Niners, against the Giants, against the Lions. Geno's been back there throwing 12 passes in one drive. Sometimes it feels like. So I think that that's why I said. It really was like everything had to go their way to get it done. Every side had to play well, because I do think it really worked together really well today. in a way that I didn't foresee. And we'll talk about some things that happened that led to that. But if there's anything to take away from this, it's that they have like the blueprint on tape against a competent opponent now. Because they were kind of able to do a little bit of this against Denver, but Denver stinks. Like their defense is solid, but like, come on, we've seen Bo Nix. That's not it. And then the Dolphins, without Tua, they are a UFL team. Like I was box score watching today. I had text my homies who cover the Dolphins. I was like, yo, did Tyreek and Waddle like not play? Or did they get arrested at the stadium again? Like, what's going on? I didn't see him in the box score at all. You know, the Dolphins are not a real team without Tua, at least on offense. So the Falcons are a formidable opponent. I do think they're probably going to win this division, right? Maybe the Bucks will. We'll see. But like they're a good team, and they were able to beat the Seahawks, where that is be better on both sides in a way that is like most sustainable. If they had to like win this late in the fourth quarter with a dramatic drive or something like that, that would have been fine too. But I feel like if you really want to prove that you're like that in the NFL, you need some of these. You need some of these against a team that's like formidable. And to do that shorthanded too, I tweeted out the starting secondary today, and then my mentions were unkind. Just a bunch of people acting like I just made the name Josh Jobe up. Like, no. It was like somebody tweeted me, it was like, are we sure Josh Jobe's a real person? I'm like, yeah, man. Like, I remember draft coverage. I think he went to Bama. Like, I think I wanted the Seahawks to draft him, you know? So yeah, Josh Jobe, Coby Bryant, Nehemiah Pritchett, and Julian Love, and then Spoon. Like it didn't look promising on paper. And then at one point, their offensive line was Charles, Lakin, Connor, Christian Haynes, and Mike Jerrell. As two rookies on the right side. So I mean, on paper, you could see like, oh, this could get nasty, especially since Kirk's been balling this season. And it didn't get nasty. Well, it did for the Falcons. They got their butt whipped. But I thought the way they went about this was very important and impressive, particularly tightening up in the run. I really think that changed everything. And you can see why when they do get run on, they can get their ass kicked. Because when teams can run on you, it gets nasty. Today, even though they weren't able to run super well on the opponent couldn't run on them. And I do think that when the Seahawks do get to unleash their pressure packages, you know, I think all three of the turnovers, if I'm not mistaken, Chris, they came in obvious passing situations, I believe.
Yeah,
I got that
Derek
right.
Hall
Yeah.
was a passing situation, rolling to his left, and Boye Mafe crushes him. Derek Hall picks it up, brings it back. Pressure from, forget who it was, but he had to throw it, and that was picked off. And then Drake
Murphy.
London.
Yep,
Murphy,
yeah. Murphy,
and
yes.
then the last one was, I think it was too high. Well, actually, Drake should have caught that.
I don't think he had pressure on the one, the pits that Kobe. I think that was just high.
I think he misfired on that one. But yeah.
But at that point, they were down 20 points with 7 minutes left. So that was obvious passing situation. So yeah, like all of their turnovers came A, while they were leading the game, and then B, when they were in obvious passing situations. And that's not going to happen every week, obviously. But to get back on track, that is what they needed. They needed to, all right, play with a lead. You know, or at least play when you're not in catch-up mode. I think that Geno drop back number is amazing. 2 passes, Chris, in the fourth quarter.
That's what you would want from him. That's exactly how you'd want the offense to flow. Go through Ken Walker, who at this point, they just said, hey, buddy, you're done for the day. You got 2 tuds. You can chill. Zach Charbonnet, you want some carries, bro? You're all for it. Kenny McIntosh, we'll give you some time, too. Ken basically, as you told me, the flu game. He went out there, and I'm sure Geno and everybody else was carrying him off. I should probably get that meme of Jordan being carried by Pippen, and I forget who it was, and then just put Ken Walker, Geno Smith, and maybe JSN carrying Ken off the field. That'd be hilarious. But yeah, Ken was able to.
It's just Scotty, by the way. That's
just Scotty. Okay, so in that scenario, just have Geno crop Geno's picture over Scottie Pippen, and then MJ, Ken Walker, post that. Have the internet, see how's the internet going crazy. But yeah, Ken Walker having a solid game definitely allowed for Geno to say, I get to throw it twice in the fourth quarter. This is lovely, because they had a lead. They didn't need to throw it anymore. They were playing, as you mentioned, Mike, with full steam. They had it. All you got to do is hold it now. As you mentioned,
Mhm.
this is the first time all season that they've had a lead and held it
Well,
throughout the
I think
entire game.
they led the entire Dolphins game too, but that with the caveat that the Dolphins are not a real football team on offense. For real, they're Tim Boyle played again today. Like it's just not they are just not a real football team on offense without Tua. But yes, they did lead the entire game against them as well.
There you have it.
Oh, can I, I thought was funny, Chris, and I'm sure you saw it too. Actually, I know you did. Like when Ken Walker got announced that he was questionable with an illness, and obviously it was his birthday today, and they're in Atlanta. They landed Friday. There was just this assumption that Ken was out getting lit
Oh,
or
wow.
celebrating his
I did not
birthday.
see this.
You didn't see nobody question that
No.
he was. Oh man, that's all it was. Like when I tweeted it on Saturday, seeing the quote tweets, they were like, "All right, flu, quote unquote." Or quote unquote illness. Like, come on, it's very clear. People were tweeting that it was his birthday. That's how I knew it was his birthday because they were quote tweeting my tweet or tweeting me and being like, "Oh, he just happens to be in Atlanta with an illness on his birthday, huh? All right, you can't fool us." Like it was actually pretty funny. But the reason why I also got a kick out of it is like of all the people that would not be true of is Ken Walker. Like I don't know if you guys picked up on it with Ken. Ken is not a party animal. Ken is not like turn up, man. Ken was probably playing video games in his room and just started coughing and was like, "Yo, hey coach, I think I'm sick." He probably wasn't out breaking curfew. Not to imply that there was a guy who did break curfew, but like you guys get the point what I'm saying here. Ken was like the least likely dude probably on the team to to have gotten sick in Atlanta on his birthday because of some nefarious activity. I'm sure he's just actually sick. Chris, we also got to keep our fingers crossed that like everyone isn't sick on the Wednesday report because like Ken had a mask on in the locker room and I was like, wait a minute, does he got COVID?
COVID? Oh my God.
I hope not. I really don't. And Ken said he was going through it during the game, which you could kind of see. He didn't even celebrate after one of them touchdowns. He was like, I'm gassed. Looked like he was about to throw up, but I just got a kick out of my man. Everybody being like, "Yeah, we know you're in Atlanta. It's your birthday. We get it." Somebody called it like the brown liquor flu.
Dang.
It was no one believed Ken. It was a big we don't believe you. You need more people movement going on with my man Ken Walker over there. I feel bad for him, but he did play well, and I think that. Let me look at the box score if I'm remembering this right. Yeah, I think all the guys who scored their touchdowns were DK and Ken.
Yeah, Ken had
And
the rushing touchdown and the nice catch from Gino.
yes, and the catch, Gino audibled to that. Sounds like he saw something and was like, Ken one-on-one with a linebacker? Showtime. Both of Gino's touchdowns, by the way,
Yeah.
were just amazing. We can get to those a little bit more in the questions we're asked as well. But yeah, I think I bring up the who scored the touchdowns because on we've been kind of talking about this throughout this season. Ken and DK are their game breakers. They just are. And the more that they get those two in particular, when the more those two get the ball, I know everyone wants JSN to get busy this season. I think it's coming. It won't just be the Patriots game, but the more Ken and DK touch the ball, the harder it is on the other team. That's just how it is. I know DK has fumbled. No, he didn't drop the deep ball today. Got tipped by AJ Terrell. That wasn't a drop. You know me. You guys know me. I'm hard on DK with the drops. I would call it a drop if it was a drop. I even text Chris to ask him to go back and look and get a video of it in slow-mo so he could double check with me. So I wasn't too hard on DK. He sent me the video. It got tipped. Thank you, Chris. But when those two guys get the ball, it's everything. Like it changes the whole complexion of any game for the Seahawks because those dudes can score from anywhere. And not to say that Jackson and Tyler aren't important. They obviously both were in this game. Jackson keeps showing us that he can sling that thing. Good for him. But when those two guys get the ball, it really is something to behold. And even Jackson's throw, I just joked about it. But like I talked to Jackson after the game. I was like, yo, like, what's it supposed to look like if you don't like what point do you have to get to not throw it? He's like, well, if he's like, double covered. And he kind of was saying, and he stopped himself like, well, actually he was, huh? And I'm like, yeah. You threw that in the double coverage. He's like, yeah, you're right. But I trust DK. It's good. And you know
That's
what?
how it's supposed to be.
Exactly. He's right. No one hears that as like, oh, damn, yeah, Jax, you should have tucked that. No, they're like, throw it up to 14 and he'll go get it. So credit to DK. We were hard on him last week, but he was balling. And for a second there, he was the best player on the field. So when Ken's running it and DK is the best player on offense, the Seahawks are going to be hard to stop. The Falcons defense is kind of boo-boo, but in general, against most teams, DK and Ken, when those two guys are touching the ball, it's just different. And you kind of saw that with their offense today. And because of the work they did today in the first 3 quarters, that's why in the fourth quarter they could unleash the dogs. And when they did, Kirk Cousins, boy, he folded. Couldn't even finish the game. Yeah, Michael Penix in there.
He
knocked that boy out the game.
Boy couldn't move. Like I said, he was in 4 feet of sand. Feet got real tight when that box closed on him. Oh man, there's guys on me. I remember he just stood there like, oh shoot. Like that brother cannot move. All right. I know Kirko, he has all the chains, he has a good time, but when that pocket collapses, that boy, he's worse than Tom Brady. Tom Brady could at least move. Like he could backpedal out and try to run. Kirk Cousins just waving the white flag. Just don't hurt me. That's what it looked like. But give credit to the Seahawks defense for making that adjustment and getting pressure on him with a 4-man rush. They sent a couple of blitzes. Spoon didn't get there. I'm waiting for Spoon to get his blow-up sack. My goodness, he's missing a lot and just not getting he's getting the opportunities. He's just not making the most of them right now. So eventually he's going to get in there. And I think Mike Macdonald sent again the double corner blitz. I'm waiting for that to connect.
That has not hit all year. He sent it like 5 times.
He's done it if I'm not mistaken. I have to go back and watch the film. I don't know if I think he did it this game, but I think for the 6 weeks that the Seahawks have played, he's run it at least 1 time every game, and he is over. So eventually, it's going to work. I don't know against who, but I'm waiting for a game where I can say it worked.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, I was going to text you that when I saw it on film. I think for the Niners, like, yo, he loves this double blitz.
Yes,
he sends that joint every week.
Yes, every week he's like,
gotta be his favorite blitz. Yeah, no,
you should ask him in the presser, Mike. Hey, Mike, is that double corner blitz your favorite?
I gotta ask him off to the side because I don't want to say yes. Him to say yes on camera.
Well, actually,
he won't say yes. He won't.
Yes, yeah, he would be like, I don't know what you're talking about. Great question though.
Something around that. That's exactly what he'll say. No, you're right. That's exactly what he'll say. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. But you know what? I get it. You know what? It's fine. It's gonna get home. You're right. One of these days, Spoon's gonna have like 3 sacks in one game. No, for real. Like I think Kyle Hamilton had a game like that last year. I want to say against the Colts that he had 3 sacks in a game. So yeah. I'm not even joking that I think one of these games, I feel like Spoon is just gonna have like a 3-sack game. Let me double check that before we move on. Yeah, Kyle Hamilton had 3 sacks last year against the Colts. So I see Spoon having a game like that this year, this year at some point. And yeah, I thought it was good. I thought the way they did it, they won largely the way they needed to. If this was a down to the wire type thing, it's nothing to be mad at because you got to be able to win in those situations. But it was very refreshing to have most of my story done in the late in the fourth and everyone in a good mood afterwards, and them to just beat the snot out of somebody and you won by 20, man. It's gonna help that point differential quite a bit. So great. Mike Macdonald, last thing before we go to questions, to his credit, he keeps saying every week, like if you guys notice if you watch these press conferences, he'll say like you'll ask him about the run defense and then be like, yeah, but it's a team stat. Or you ask him about the run game and he'd be like, yeah, but it's a team thing. And it's not, I get what he's saying. He articulates it kind of poorly sometimes, but he's talking about what happened today. Like, yes, they rushed the passer well, but they rushed it because they were leading and that the other team had to throw. And, and why was they leading? Because they were efficient on offense, moving the ball and then scoring. They were getting into Falcons territory whenever they wanted, right? Like, It is all connected indeed. Everything is a team stat, so to speak. Why did Geno throw a couple picks last game? Well, in obvious passing situations, the more you drop back, the more danger there is, that affects your pass rush. Geno was only sacked once today. Oh, what do you know? He was barely throwing the ball in the second half. Didn't get sacked. Like it's all connected. He's right. Like it is a team thing. So he knows what he's talking about. And I do think it helps that they won this game to reinforce some of the stuff I know he's telling them, because as good as all that stuff sounds, you lose 4 straight, ain't nobody trying to hear none of that. Like it's very, they were on the borderline of unraveled territory, losing 4 straight, and instead they're in first place in the division again, getting ready to host Buffalo, hopefully healthier, particularly in the back end. We'll get to that later this week. But yeah, I think they're in a very good place, a much better place, I should say, having snapped that skid and validated a lot of the messaging they've been getting from their head coach over the last few weeks.
Well, Mike mentioned it briefly about Twitter questions. So if you are a new listener, a new viewer, after every Seahawks game, Mike will hit the timeline, Twitter timeline that is, and say, hey, you got questions, send them over. And then Mike and I will go through as many as we can, usually all of them, if there's not 90, and we will answer as many as we can. So without, can't say further ado, damn it. Let's get to it.
You can say without further ado, man.
No, because you said it once. I got to come up with something new. I can't be just using that now. That is, you've trademarked that on the Seahawks Man to Man pod. I will use something else. But nonetheless, Twitter questions to get things rolling. This is from Holly. Thoughts on Michael Jerrell? And Mike, what was the mood around the locker room after a much needed W like the Seahawks had on Sunday against the Falcons?
What's up, Holly? Holly, I feel like it's been a regular. This is like Winters or something like that. Is the at name something with a W?
Holly Keefe.
Keefe? Oh no. Oh yes, that one. Yes, that one too. What's up, Holly? The mood, man. The mood. The locker room choice was kind of funky. Music choice was kind of funky. I thought they would have went with a little bit more of a trappy feel, but they did not. I think. How can I put this? This is a good like kind of analogy or kind of to make it relatable. I'm a dad now. I play flag football on the weekends with Chris. My wife and kid aren't usually there. They came like I think was that like a month ago, and I could feel like I just had a regular game. I wasn't doing nothing crazy. But when they showed up, I was like, yeah, I need a pick right fast. You know what I mean? And my daughter is 1. She doesn't know what a pick is. She wouldn't even really be able to tell if I had the rock was playing well or not. But there is kind of that feeling like, yo, my peoples is here. Let's show out. And I do think that like the mood was good, to the short version of this answer. But I'm bringing that up because I was telling Chris this before we hit record. I don't think I've ever seen that many family and friends at a game that I did today. I think everyone on the team had people there today. Like it was nuts. And from the practice squad to guys who were inactive to the stars. Like DK had people there, Gino had people there. I'm seeing Tyrell Dotson's people there. I'm sure those were Julian Love's parents because the lady he was talking to looks exactly like him. He's one of them guys who looks like his mom. I mean, I'm assuming, but God, that was like, yo, that had to be his mom. Spoon took a picture with like 25 people. That was nuts. Charles Cross, Cameron Young, that's an example of an active guy. D. Williams. Just go down the list. It felt like everybody and their mama was at this game for real. There was somebody we interviewed, I think Charles Cross. Yeah, I mentioned him. He had people there. DK. It was just Tyler Lockett had people there. It was deep. Bruce Irvin was there. If you guys, I don't know how many, I retweeted it, but like last week, Bruce Irvin tweeted about the Seahawks defense and was like, we had a standard. This is not the standard or something. So Bruce was there. He lived in Atlanta. Cliff Averill was here with at least one of his kids. So there was, no one told me this directly, but just as a parent in particular now, I just can relate with the fact of like, yo, my peoples is here. Time to ball. Coby Bryant. His family was here. His mom was here. They were going to be here regardless. They just happened to be here when he was making his first start. The coaches had people here. Mike Macdonald had people here. He's from Georgia. So there was an added feeling of like, yo, we did this. And I thought that played into it. At least it felt like. That's kind of the read I got with a lot of guys feeling like, yo, we came all the way to Atlanta. We got people here. Like, we done lost 3 straight. Let's go knock this out. So like, I think that mood was really good, not only because they won and they snapped the skid, but that part too is like, yo, a lot of these people who were here today watched them on national TV get whooped. They were losing on national TV in front of millions. When they at the crib, it's even at the crib, meaning here. Like when they there, it's like, yo, turn up. So, and then the fans was crazy. The fans were way louder than the Falcons fans. Like I tweeted a picture pregame. Like right when the anthem is, that's usually when I take a pic. Dog, there was nobody in the lower bowl. It was crazy. And then by the fourth quarter, it was Seahawks all up through the fourth quarter. So it was just completely good vibes for like a number of reasons. On to Mike Jerrell, the rookie. Shout out to him. I don't know if he had people there. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. I forget where he's from. I think Baltimore. So maybe. I thought Mike did some really good things. I thought he had a decent game for a rook, making his first start on the road. Um, he did give up the only sack of the game, and I think he was flagged for a false start as well, which in context is kind of a very Stone Forsythy, Jermaine Ifedi-ish type of game, you know. But when you're a rook making your first start, you know, as long as you weren't just awful, you'll get pats on the back. You know, for real, generally speaking, I'm sure he'll look at the film and have critiques of himself. But I also think he did some good things. I mean, even a subtle thing on Geno's touchdown pass to Ken Walker, the someone jumps the snap pretty quickly,
The
and
left end, yeah. Or the
yeah,
well, excuse me. Gino's right, but correct. Continue. He
yes,
jumps.
and I believe that's number 17 kid from Penn State, the pass rusher, I believe Arnold something. Really solid. No, that was Judon, I think. Actually, doesn't matter. Anyway, if you look on Geno's touchdown pass, a guy jumps the snap. So Jerrell's kind of cooked from the jump, not even really because it's his fault. Like, God just knew the snap count. But Jerrell does this subtle thing. He just kind of brushes him a little bit, just pushes him a tad. And it uses the dude's momentum against him, allows Geno to step up, and that's all Geno needed. Boom. Hits the little wheel route action type joint to Ken Walker for a touchdown. So even on that play where that's probably going to go down on like PFF or True Media or whatever as a pressure allowed by Jerrell, which is not wrong per se, but the way he got out of that was impressive as well. And then even on Ken Walker's touchdown, the touchdown run, excuse me, like that's just a run to the right. You know, like Christian Haynes seals off his dude. He got the kick out joint from Mike Jerrell. Boom, crease. And when Ken's gets kissed to the second level, is it's curtains. So I think he did it some good, had some struggles. I think that's what I expected from a rook. I also think it helps him though that he played what is probably going to be the worst pass rush in the NFL going forward. Maybe them or the Panthers or something. Like the Falcons are just bad rushing the passer. Like they're a decent team. I do think they're a formidable opponent, but that part is where they're incredibly deficient. And if there was ever a game to start your fourth string right tackle from a D2 school, it was against the Falcons because they are legitimately like bad. I think one of the I don't know if we talked about this or not, it doesn't matter. But one of the reasons I was critical of them taking Michael Penix Jr. because I was looking at their depth chart on defense. I was like, who are y'all going to have rush the passer? Like, that was a huge issue, and it still is even after they traded for Judon too. So they got issues. They probably should have took Byron Murphy or Jared Verse, but that's neither here nor there. They have a bad pass rush, and it was good to see Mike Jerrell, however he wants to go by, just not be overwhelmed by the moment. He did have a false start, did give up a sack, so not a very perfect game, not a very clean game, but he wasn't a hindrance on the offense. And we've seen the right tackle be exactly that. And the fact that he was not, I think, is like the most you could ask for. He would have to be better if he plays next week against Buffalo. Their pass rush is good. But for this game, I thought he did good enough to get the job done.
And to piggyback off of, he did pretty good. He also was the reason Ken Walker was able to score. He seals the edge on that and allows Ken to get outside on that run and score that touchdown. So a little bit of love for Mr. Jerrell getting his first start in the NFL for the Seahawks. This next one is from _Don Chu. How long have the Seahawks coaching staff known that Jerrell is better player than Forsyth? And why did they wait till now to activate them?
Yeah, I feel like we can't jump. It's a fair question. I love that we kept it in here. I don't want to jump the gun though. I spent a lot of time talking about the lack of talent on the Falcons pass rush for a reason. Like, let's look at the teams that Stone went against, to cut him a little slack here. So Aiden Hutchinson, come on, that dude's a monster. The Giants with I think they had in their game they had Thibodeau and Brian Burns.
Dexter Lawrence too was also out there.
Right. Yeah. And Stone wouldn't have gone against him too much, but the presence of Dexter probably limits how many times they can help out Stone too. So you got but even without Dexter, you got Brian Burns, you got Kayvon Thibodeau right after going against Aiden Hutchinson. Then the next week you get Bosa. So like, I think that for the most part, they are probably similar players. Like if Jerrell ends up being better, I wouldn't be surprised. But at the moment, it made plenty sense to go with a guy who has some experience in Stone. before turning to Jerrell. Again, this was the game to start Mike Jerrell. Like, listen to who I just said. Aiden Hutchinson, Nick Bosa, Kayvon Thibodeau, Brian Burns. That is tough. I don't think Jerrell would have had the game he had today against them Cats. It just would have been a lot tougher. So we'll see going forward. For what it's worth, Mike Macdonald, a lot of Mikes here today. Mike Macdonald said that he's optimistic George Fant could be back for the Buffalo game. So if that's the case, I'm just going to play George. If I'm Seattle, just play George. But credit to Jerrell. Again, he would need to be better next week against a better defense, better pass rush, and stuff like that against Buffalo. And it's even after that as well. But yeah, he did what he was supposed to do against this defense, I should say. I feel like you got to take that into account when you're trying to compare him to Stone. Stone ran through a little gauntlet there. Just reading those names off, that's real deal that he went against. So I feel like we got to cut him a little slack when we're just going to – I can't just crown Jerrell better than him off the one game. That would be unfair to Stone, who has had games where he's played well like this before.
Mr. Let's see, Maher at Maher's Bar. How good of a game did Charles Cross have? Didn't hear his name called once on Sunday against the Falcons.
Yeah, that's a good question. Charles has been playing pretty decent. He's had he had a rough one. I forget who the rough play was against. I think the Dolphins. It was really rough where he gave up a sack. Today he was really good, basically outside of one drive. The 2-minute drive at the end of the first half was not his best. He just got whipped by 17, I think, on Tyler's second catch in the 2-minute. Shout out to Gino for getting rid of it. And then it kind of went because of the touchdown pass to DK, it kind of gets forgotten about. But like Charles got beat pretty bad on what would have been a sack if Gino didn't get rid of the ball and then get flagged for grounding. So it doesn't go down as a sack, but it's just as bad as any play that leads to a sack. After that, Charles was pretty clean. So like that drive, that was all in the same drive to end the first half. After that, or before that and outside of that, he was fine. So just like, what is that, like 10 snaps or something like that, where it's just like, what's going on with Charles? But that shows you how tough those obvious passing situations can be, though. So how many plays was that drive? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5-play drive. Charles was roughing like 3 of those or something like that. And then he was fine. So another pretty good game from Charles. You're going to have those moments where you lose. It's not the end of the world, but it definitely wasn't the super cleanest. And Gino getting rid of that, well, the grounding he probably shouldn't have done. But I guess Chris, we can use this time to talk about, hey man, Ryan Grubb got some stones on him, don't he? 3rd and 15, 10 seconds left. You call a shot play? Ooh, okay, Grubb. And I think it's 2-man, which is basically 2 high safeties, but everyone underneath them is in man. So I think I think they're manned up underneath. So
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, like it. I believe I have to watch the replay, but I believe it's 2-man. So yeah, 2 high safeties, and then everybody else just that way you can bump and run it pretty much too. You can get real physical if you're in 2-man, which is great. Great call in that situation. Oh, Gino threw a laser. Ooh, that was a laser by Eugene Smith. What a ball! Very similar to what was that, Chris? The end of the Saints game in 2022 in the first half, where he throws the deep post to Tyler.
Oh, that was
nasty. Man. Oh, that was picture perfect, man. That was Credit to Ryan Grubb, because I for sure would have just caught a little out route to Noah and kicked the field goal. And y'all know I hate kicking, but credit to him for not doing that, for calling the shot play, trusting Gino to make the right play, and then Gino. Boy, what a laser there. I know this was a question about Charles, but since we were talking about that drive anyway, I want to talk how it ended, because that was one of them, they should pay Gino throws, because you got to put a lot of heat on that to get it between those 2 Pro Bowl safeties, and he did, and that was cash.
Sticking with the offense, this one is from Dave Hill. When it's 3rd and 5, why go for 25 yards down the field?
This is a good question, and it speaks to something Tyler Lockett was telling me about, not just me, but talking about in camp. He said that's one of the things that is going to make their 3rd down offense a little better this season, because you guys know they've been pretty awful on 3rd down for like ever. Probably I could probably put a season on it in particular, but like, what are they right now? 3rd down conversions, about middle of the pack, 17th, right behind Houston. But one thing Tyler was mentioning was the sticks aren't going to define their play call on offense. Like, yeah, it's 3rd and 5. They might call a shot play. Oh, it's 3rd and 3. We might just try to get the 3, you know. Oh, it's 3rd and 1. We might play action, throw a shot, you know. Oh, you know, it's 3rd and 8. We might throw short of the sticks and get the yak. Or it's 3rd and 10, but we're never going to go for it. Okay, we might just try to get 7 or 8 right here. And then we'll go for it on 4th down. They did that today. Perhaps not intentionally, but Geno scrambled for, I think, 7 yards on 3rd and 8. And then Zach Charbonnet picked it up on 4th and 1. So I don't know, Dave, particularly what the play was there. I think maybe the 3rd and 5 shot to Tyler that ended in a roughing call, maybe be the one. If not, I apologize. But in general, I think that's part of the philosophy with Grubb, is that one way to win on 3rd down is to avoid being predictable. Like, because that teams will squat on the sticks. If you show that on tape, that's what you do. But if you're willing to take a shot, or you're willing to throw short and get the yak, it just opens up the playbook a little bit more. And I think that's really actually is going to be beneficial. I actually agree with that philosophy. Because me and Chris play flag. One thing when it's 4th down or whatever, because we don't have punts like that, or even when it's 3rd down, what do we tell our teammates? Play the sticks, see the sticks. We yell to everybody, see the sticks. And if you're telling everybody play the sticks and then the ball goes over their head, that's a win for the offense. So that's part of their philosophy, and I actually like it. I agree with it. I don't know where you sit on that, Chris, but I'm a fan of that.
It makes sense. I think it's just a time and place when to do it. Obviously, you're going to get criticism for how and when you do it, but I think the kind of what you talk about is the process. Okay, I understood why they did that there. It makes sense. They just didn't execute. And it could come down to those little things. For instance, the halftime play or right before the half. Like that's a big opportunity that you 9 times out of 10, as you said, Mike, you're not the biggest fan of kicking anyway. But guess what you're going to do? Hit a little out route to DK, Noah Fant, whoever it is, get your little 7-8 yards and attempt 3. And you're going to live with that. You go up with still a nice lead, but Grubb said, I have other ideas. Let's lull them to sleep here. Hit that post. Geno, you guys have practiced 1,000 times. Throw it to him. And kind of to JSN's comment to you in the locker room, when he's thrown in double coverage, it's like, it's a DK. And DK goes up and he snags it. And in regards to the question, 3rd and 5, and you're throwing it 35 yards, the defense is expecting it to go to the sticks. Catch them off guard. You have weapons. You have DK, JSN, and you have Tyler Lockett, who is still Mr. 3rd down king. I know we've had discussions last year on the pod where it is 3rd and 4 and you have receiver. Everyone's running deep. That always can't be the case. You always have to have a safety valve. Maybe it's DK on a drag, which when I'm going back and watching the film, I am seeing DK on simple drag routes just in case things are a mess. And he can dump it off to DK for a 1st down, whether it's 5 yards, 6 yards, or it's an explosive because DK, when he gets running north and south, he picks up speed very quickly and he's a brute to bring down. So I think I don't have a problem with it. I do understand, though, there are times where it can be criticized, but I think on Sunday's game against the Atlanta Falcons, I thought Grubb did a pretty good job of picking and choosing when to attack deep and try to go beyond the sticks, because those are how you create explosives. It allows you to open up the playbook even more.
Yeah, and I think on 3rd and 5, Tyler did convert early on like a whip route, which is great. It was short of the sticks, converted, got 6 yards, I believe. 3rd and 5. Chris, you know what they were probably telling each other the next time it was 3rd and 5? Play the sticks. Play this. I think I found the play that is in question here, and I think it is the one that's roughing the passer, because that was a deep shot to lock on 3rd and 5. But I think you get those ops, and you get those ops because it's like, oh, what's the defense thinking? Okay, play the sticks. So no, I like it there. You just got to execute on it. I actually like that mindset there.
This is from Eric Stank. Ooh, we're just going to say Eric Stan. We're just going to leave it at that. That last name is tough. Does everyone still want to cut Geno and fire Mike Macdonald, or are we good?
Yeah, man. I feel like I think it was very fair to be critical of mostly Mike Macdonald. I feel like Geno's play has honestly been fine given the circumstances. I think it really has. Even if you look at the interceptions from the Niners game, like one of them, he's getting wrecked. Probably should have just took a sack there, the first one, trying to throw it to Tyler. But then the other one is like almost completely on DK. I wouldn't have thrown it late and over the middle like that, but I mean, that's the route. It's like backside, like in breaker. He's kind of just throwing what the route is, and then DK just freestyles for no apparent reason. So I think like Gino's been playing fine. He's been asked to drop back a lot. I don't think every game should be an indictment of him per se, because I feel like he's put a lot of good stuff on tape. Mike is the new guy who's trying to prove his philosophy and stuff like that, and what he's teaching and everything. And he's the guy that I feel like we could put the microscope on each week or after we get a few games in a sample. And I thought it was very fair to be critical of his team after 6 weeks, because they just looked out of sorts quite often, And as you guys have probably figured out over the last year we've been doing this pod, my big thing with the head coach is I need the team to reflect what you say, what you emphasize. If you say your team wants to be physical or aggressive or even conservative or whatever it is, whatever you say your team wants to be, whatever you're preaching, that needs to be reflected on the field. And for 3 weeks there, on Mike Macdonald's side, it was not. It was not. You weren't getting turnovers. You weren't stopping the run. You weren't being physical. You were getting blown off the ball. And even when you weren't getting blown off the ball, guys didn't know their assignments. You were just getting wide open gaps in the run game. Like, it was very not sound football. It was not what Mike's preaching, emphasizing, things like that. So today it was. They did a good job, and I do want to emphasize the Falcons are a good team. They're not like the other teams that the Seahawks beat up on. The Patriots, Broncos, and Dolphins, minus Tua, are bad football teams. Denver's defense, good. Even Miami's defense is fine, to be honest. But both of their offenses are trash cans. Just like on the curb, there's a trash and a recycle, and like a little yard waste. That's the Dolphins, Patriots, and Broncos. The Falcons are not that. I think they should be a playoff team. They might need to make another move for a pass rusher, but you guys get the point. So, I think Mike is the guy who should get the week to week or maybe every other week criticism. But yeah, I think today was really big for him in that regard, because he doesn't have the benefit of the doubt that Pete has. He doesn't. So if he starts getting his back kicked in these games, fans are going to be like, did we hire the next Brandon Staley? I wouldn't go that far. But those are the type of questions that creep in when you consistently get beat, both by teams that are better than you and teams that are probably not, such as the Giants. So, I understand why everyone was critical, actually. And that was fair. Today is the day to shout out Mike for getting his guys right after a 3-game skid. And we cannot emphasize this enough. They were super shorthanded. People thought I was making up names that I tweeted about the guys who were starting in the secondary. They called up a cat from the practice squad and started like a 5th-round rookie today against a veteran quarterback with good weapons and did enough to get the job done. That's a credit to the coach and his staff. So as much heat as he got during a 3-game skid, all deserved. Today, he deserves the praise for getting his guys ready to play on the road.
This one comes from @JagFox. What's the plan B if DK misses games?
Yeah, I think this version of the Seahawks is probably more equipped to deal with the loss of DK than any other, particularly if Ken is healthy. But really, it's what you guys would all want if DK is hurt. # more Bobo. Actually, can I say something before we talk about Bobo? Yep. I feel bad, you guys. I really do when I tweet an injury update, because I just know what that does to the fans. And it's not that I'm doing it on purpose to do that to the fans. I'm just tweeting what I see. I saw DK go in the medical tent. I saw DK testing out his leg. I'm like, okay, I don't want to tweet nothing yet because I'm not really sure. And the Falcons have the ball. So I'm like, I want to wait till he goes back in. Well, then he gets carted off. And I'm like, oh, damn. Now I got to tweet that DK getting carted off. I'm about to scare the fan. Like, he could be fine. And I always get a little weary when DK gets carted off, because I think one time he got carted off because he had to poop. And so ever since then, I'm just like, all right, is DK hurt or did he eat McDonald's? Like, I have to think about that in my mind every time I tweet about DK getting carted off. But in this case, I saw him go in the medical tent, so I knew he was hurt. But I don't know if we said it earlier in the show, but Mike Macdonald said that they're optimistic about DK. Doesn't look too bad. Those are his words exactly. And Coach Mike Macdonald speak, that's good. Because you guys have probably noticed, if he doesn't know about an injury, he just says it. He's just like, I don't know. He hurt his ankle. I'll find out tomorrow. But today he made a point to be like, it doesn't look that bad. Now, obviously, he could wake up or they could get back on Monday, and then they're like, oh my God, his knee's out of socket. Who knows? But for Mike to say, yeah, it doesn't look too bad, that probably means it's not that bad. Because in the cases where he errs on the side of caution before he just says, oh no, he's fine. Mike Macdonald doesn't do that. He's pretty cautious with injury reports. So if when he lands, I would imagine he'll get more updates and it'll probably be positive. So that's good because they need him to beat Buffalo. If they don't have DK, 1, that's bad. 2, more Bobo. I like Bobo, man. He's a good route runner. Got good hands. Good blocker too. Just mowed down somebody on Zach Charbonnet's 4th down run. That was incredible. So I think it was a linebacker too, not even like a DB or something. So I mean, not to say Jake's as good as DK, but yeah, it will be more Bobo. But I think the way Mike talked after the game, it's probably not that bad.
This is from Nico Rito, 22. What's the run defense's ceiling?
This is a good question because I'm not super sold on the Falcons' run game for a few reasons. They pretty much only do it out of pistol, it feels like, which is weird. I don't know if that has to do with Kirk's foot or his Achilles or whatever, because he's really like Chris and I are not overstating this. That brother cannot move. that is going to be a problem. Like Kirk's going to need to be able to move, at some point, unless you just have the best pass protection ever. So the Falcons' run game is a hard one for me to gauge because I like both of their running backs, but they seem to have a pretty vanilla run game. Very similar, I feel like, to the Eagles of last year and the year before, where like they only run a few things, but they just do them really well. So it's hard to stop them because their O-line is so good. And you got the tush push if they come up short and things like that. Whereas the Falcons only use 1 personnel pretty much. They basically use 11 personnel, like damn near 90% of the time. So that changes that. I think one of their tight ends got hurt, so that maybe changed a little bit of their math today. But I bring that all up to say the Niners game and in the big picture, being able to stop like the Niners run game and stop the Lions run game, that's where you would want the ceiling to be, like to stop those. And I'm not sure they have the horses to get there. So I say that to say they'll probably end up with an average run game. Because when it's something vanilla like today, like the Falcons, they just kept running wide zone and we're just like, Bijan, get those cutbacks and we'll be fine. And then when they didn't have that anymore, they just stopped. Which you guys have seen. The Seahawks have played other teams with way more diverse run games who can get you between the tackles. They can spread you out. They'll do shotgun runs, a bunch of motions, 2 tight ends, 3 tight ends, use a fullback. Like the Falcons are very plain. And I feel like it's a lot easier to stop, which is why they were able to so quickly in this game. But I feel like if you want your ceiling to be high, you have to be able to stop a little bit of everything. The Chiefs defense, if you want one to watch, is a really good one. In terms of stopping the run, if you want one that runs the Seahawks scheme, I believe the Chargers are a pretty good run defense. They run the same scheme as the Seahawks. So I think as currently constructed, there'll probably just be an average defense against the run, which could be okay, especially when their secondary heals up. But I don't think it'll be elite. I don't know if they have the horses for that, particularly at the second level, but I think it can be average, which is an upgrade, Chris, from the last couple of years because they were just god awful last couple seasons. So if they were just average, that is a huge, huge, huge bump compared to the previous 2 seasons.
This one is from Quentin. This is more of a league-wide thing, but appropriate for the Seahawks. How exactly are NFL defenders supposed to be able to tackle if you really can't practice tackling?
Take good angles and have good technique. It doesn't always need to. If you notice, bad tackling is not a ton of guys getting run over, smooth, just run over. Like, Chris, we can probably, I don't have it in front of me, but we could probably go back and count every time someone just got trucked.
There's not too many. Kobe got trucked once.
Spoon got trucked against the Lions.
Yep.
I think Julian got trucked against somebody.
No, he still brought him down, though.
No, against the Patriots, didn't he get trucked? Or was that Kayvon? Ramondre
Ooh, I
ran over
think
somebody.
okay. Yeah, you're right. I think that was Julian. So
Yeah.
under
So
5 times through 7 games. There you go.
yeah, it's not. See how we were just able to remember all of them. Like it's not that many times that guys just get boom, just trucked. So tackling is as much about strength and stuff as it is about angles and position, and also just understanding where your role is in the play. Like I think one of the missed tackles Spoon had today, for instance, it was like a check down in the flat. Spoon tries to go for like the kill shot. Whereas if he'd have just stayed outside, Tyrell was directly to his right. If he'd have just forced Bijan back, he'd have been fine. Instead, Bijan goes up the sideline, I think in the second half for like a big gain. Nehemiah tries to push him out, can't. But like that was a bad like leveraging of the football. I hear Mike Macdonald say that a lot. That was a perfect example. If Spoon goes outside and then uses the sideline as his friend, Bijan probably cuts that back in and runs right into Tyrell. Instead, he takes a bad angle and boom. Same thing on Rayshawn Jenkins on the 76-yard touchdown at the end of the Niners game. You don't have to hit in practice to know that was a bad angle. Like angles and stuff, you can be good at and leveraging and knowing where you are and where your help is. It's kind of like basketball, knowing where your help is. Like all that stuff you can practice. And then there's techniques and how teams tackle and things like that. So that's how you get good at it, even without the physical part of it. The physical part is fine, but by the time you get to the NFL, you've tackled a lot already. Like how to do it doesn't change. So I think that's the thing that's what you practice. And that's what the Seahawks had actually been pretty bad at for this during that 3-game losing streak. It wasn't that they were getting run over and stuff. It was that guys were just not in position, taking poor angles and stuff like that. Bad leverage, bad steps the wrong way. So that's how you do it without tackling. It's a good question. I'm glad we talked about it. Because they do need to be a little bit better at it than they were today. But yeah, it's not just a physical thing. It really is angles, leverage, knowing where your help is, knowing where the sideline is. All of these are things that you can practice without ever putting pads on during the week, that is.
Dave Sayers, would you keep Coby Bryant at safety going forward?
This is an interesting one. So no is the so by going forward, I assume that means when Rayshawn Jenkins returns. And the answer is no. What I would do though, perhaps, is put him there when. So when they go 3 safeties, big nickel sometimes, and that's like Kayvon, I would just swap that. So when Rayshawn's back, I'd make Coby your 3rd safety instead of the 4th. But let's use this question, Chris, to talk about Coby. I was really happy for him to have a good game today. I feel like of all the Seahawks picks that they've had who've kind of like been wronged, so to speak, I feel like he's one of them, and probably the most egregious way. Like all that position switching he's had to do, I think that's been really tough. I haven't gotten to write about it or talk to him as much about it as I'd like, mostly because he's such a good guy and just wants to play wherever they put him that he just doesn't care. So I can't bait him into saying the coaches are screwing him, right? But I'll say it for him. You take a dude who was like a really productive corner in college, start him at corner with y'all, then just randomly move him to nickel, and then randomly move him to safety, and then he gets hurt. And then now it's like, okay, be like our backup safety. It's just in a new scheme. It's just tough, man. This is really tough. And I wasn't sure how he would do today. The one thing I am very confident in with Coby is 2 things. He can catch. He had a lot of plays on the ball in college. They got like 45 PBUs or something like that. Passes defense that Cincinnati, just an insane number because no one wanted to throw at Sauce. They just only threw at him. So he was great there. And the other thing is Coby's violent. Every preseason, I have clips in my computer or my phone of Coby just laying people out. Like Titans defenders or Titans offensive players wanted to fight Coby in Nashville during joint practices because he and Ty Okada were just out just laying folks out in Nashville. He's a violent dude. So I knew that if he got around the ball to tackle, he'd be fine. And I knew if the ball came to him, he'd catch it. And I do think, shout out to Julian Love. I didn't know this until I listened to his press conference. Julian has been advocating for Coby to play because he sees the playmaking in him. And what he probably sees are the 2 things I just named. A guy who will catch the ball if it comes his way, and then a guy who likes to hurt people. Not like illegally, but you get my point. I do think they need more of that. But that's also why you saw Coby come in as their dime back earlier in the year. I just think now you just got to upgrade that. Even when Rayshon's back, I do think there should be room for Coby on the field, as long as he doesn't sacrifice getting a guy on the ground for making the big play. That's important because he does punch the ball out. He does hunt for those hits. You just can't do that and then at the expense of making a big play, or at the expense of like leveraging the ball, knowing where your help is, stuff like that. So I thought he played well. I think he led him in tackles. I got that right, Chris? He was like 11 tackles or something like that. A really good day. Yeah, 11 tackles and a pick. Good day. The only reservation I have, I don't know if you have one as well, Chris, but mine is just man coverage. I would want to keep him out of those situations as much as I can, as we saw today, whether it was on Pitts or on Drake London. I don't think the foot speed is there for those like obvious man situations, unless it's against tight ends. That would be my only reservation. But I feel like if he's the third safety, it's a lot easier to avoid that. Like I think letting Coby be back there, evaluate the play, and trigger, I think that's when he's at his best. And I think that's what he was best at today. Not as much as the right up at the line man stuff, more like the, I'm back here. Oh, I see what's coming. Let me go hit somebody or catch the ball. I thought Coby was really solid in that aspect today. And he will be going forward. I'm pretty confident in those traits that he has.
Next one is from Chris Calvert. How would you assess Spoon's play so far through 7 weeks?
Yeah, man. I hate when this happens. When the film kind of has... I feel like this happened with us with Jamal too, Chris. We're like, the film was backing us up. The splash plays weren't there, but the film was backing us up. But then Jamal would have like some bad plays that were like obvious. And then it'd be like, oh, this guy is clearly not playing well. Spoon through 6 weeks was like their best defender. Like it sounds crazy because he hasn't been around the ball, but he's been doing a lot of the right things. Like his coverage has been right. His tackling. I mean, he missed the one in the he got run over in the Lions game, but like he was excellent in that game. Like that was the only bad play he had, was that one. Like his effort has been great. I think, Chris, you mentioned that post game of the Niners. We talked about effort, I think, and like there were so many plays where like Spoon chases a guy down. Spoon is the one, there. I mean, even today on D-Hall scoop and score, it's if Spoon doesn't run and crack the lineman, D-Hall probably doesn't score. Like Spoon's been playing really well. ... Up until today. Like I thought he missed a lot of tackles today.
Yeah, he did.
I've talked about this before, as you guys know how I chart the games in my notebook. I write MT with an underline as I chart every game here. I'll show my notebook. This is just sloppy. I'm not going to go through it, but you guys see on YouTube showing you my notebook. Like I chart everything. And so like, I have MT and underline next to whenever a guy misses a tackle. And that's whether you get run over or just take a bad angle. Or my definition of missed is, did you have a chance to bring the guy down? And then did you? I have Spoon. I'm not going to try to count them all. It'll probably take too long, which is bad. But I had Spoon at least like 4 or 5 times today. It was rough. The coverage stuff I wasn't too worried about, like the Mooney catch or even the one that goes over his head to Drake London. I feel like that was just like really good ball placement. But even then, those happened. I felt like today was probably his roughest tackling day. And coverage was kind of whatever. I think actually some of his coverage actually led to the one of the sacks today, which you can't see on the broadcast copy. But yeah, Chris, I feel like Spoon's been playing so well, and then today it was like, oof, hard to defend you after that because there were a lot of MTs in my notebook. But take our word for it, you guys. Me and Chris watched a lot of film before today. Spoon was on it. He was on. I'm telling you, probably their best defender through 6 weeks. And he probably will be going forward too. The ball just hasn't been around him. But he has been lights out before today. I promise. And today wasn't even like bad in coverage, but like the tackling. This was probably Spoon's worst tackling game, maybe of his career.
So putting things in perspective. Through 6 games, Spoon has played 362 snaps. That's not including the 7th game that will count probably tomorrow at around midnight. So Monday morning, you guys will wake up. The new snap count will be available. He's fine. He had one rough day against the Niners, or not the Niners, excuse me. He had one rough day against a decent, competent Atlanta Falcons team. Bijan Robinson, scary feet. All right. Dude just makes people miss. I don't know how many teams were successful in just slowing him down for a full 60 minutes. It's very tough to do. Not making an excuse for Spoon. It wasn't just him, but my golly, everybody was missing. Okay. He was just dancing back there. Scary feet. Again, Devon Witherspoon, 362 snaps through 6 games. When it's updated, I would imagine Spoon probably played 70 plus snaps on Sunday. I'm not here to do math, but 400 plus snaps, and he had one bad week. I'm not worried about it. I'm good. Spoon had one tough game, and Mike is right. Yes, I was like, damn, Spoon. No sacks, missing tackles. Okay, we can move on. Go ahead, Mike. I see you.
So I was counting the MTs while you were talking.
Oh, boy.
It looks like I only have 3.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a lot.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I shouldn't say only. But had 3. Maybe there's more. But also this is where I was thinking there was a 4th. There was a 3rd and 7 today before the Younghoe Koo missed field goal where Spoon was cooked. I think it was Ray McLeod.
And Kirk Cousins missed him. Yeah, I tweeted it out. Yeah, that was a nasty route.
On the money, that is 7.
Yeah, that was a really good route, and Kirk just missed him.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, that was I think it was to Ray. Yeah, 34, Ray McLeod. Yeah, no, that was man.
Yeah, I tweeted. I said, you don't see Spoon get beat often, but on that one, Ray had him lost. So yeah, that was a really good route.
Yeah, that was another one. But looking back now, it looks like really the first half was rough. That was
putting context into it.
A lot of stuff was that's not an excuse either. Like this was the game where you're just like, ooh, damn, what's up with Spoon? Where I feel like when we got other games when we were like, what's up with Spoon? It was a little reachy, or we're just kind of just because you see him on the screen, so you think it was his fault. When really you go back and look, it's like, oh, he's covering for someone else. Today it was like, nah, I think that's fair. A lot of MTs, and then yeah, I mean that was basically 6 that Kirk just overthrew before the Younghoe missed field goal from 54. So yeah, no, fair question. Spoon will be fine though. He'll be fine. Like it wouldn't surprise me if he just has like a big game against Buffalo. Like he'll be fine. He plays too hard. He's too smart. Got good instincts. But yeah, a lot more missed MTs than I thought I would have saw today by him.
Gone guy. What's the ceiling on Boye Mafe and Derek Hall as a duo?
Man, it is. Yo, I don't know if it'll be my standout play because you guys have all seen. We will have seen it a bunch of times by Friday because it was such a big highlight. But the way the pocket collapsed on the strip sack with like deep because they both basically power rushed from each side, which I don't know how often I see that. Usually you see one guy maybe try to finesse and one guy power on the other side, but they both just powered rush, D Hall and Mafe, I mean, and that thing just collapsed on Kirk. I mean, there was good coverage on the back end too, but it just it was done. He had to, like, I think that might have been the only time Kirk got out of the pocket all game is because he had to, because that thing just caved on him fast. I don't know how often that'll happen, but that play was an example of what the ceiling is. I bring that play up for that reason. That's the ceiling. It's where they are both just overwhelming the opposing tackle. And I think a lot of linemen got hurt. So I don't know if those were the starting tackles by that point. I know it was on Boye's side. I don't know about. Oh no, I know it was on D Hall's side, I think. But yeah, man, that's what the ceiling looks like right there. I don't know if it'll be that consistently, but I do think their complementary skill sets are just huge. It's like having a 1-2 punch at running back, like the power guy and the speed guy, like the Lions have with Gibbs and Montgomery. What do they want to be called now? Sonic and Knuckles or whatever. It's like that. Thunder, lightning, 1-2, whatever you want to call it, like a running back. That's kind of what Mafe and D Hall could be. Is like D Hall's strength is just overwhelming. Like Draymond's sack, to give you guys another example. Draymond's sack is an example of two things. One, what Chris was talking about with Kirk Cousins have cinder blocks on his ankles. That pocket collapsed, and he didn't even think about it. He didn't think about leaving the pocket. He said, I'm just, it's like when the captain in the movie is like, oh, the boats that were treading water, huh? Well, I'm going to go down with my ship today, boys. That was Kirk on the sack that Draymond gets because D-Hall collapses the pocket from one side and Draymond collapses the pocket from the other side. And Jaron Reed's coming up the gut. And Kirk don't think about moving. He just says, you know what? I'm going down. This is it. It's over. It's done. Queen Latifah and set it off. I'm get out the car and get smoked. That was it. He was done. But D Hall's strength is so overwhelming, and he was on the left tackle on the Draymond sack. That when he's collapsing it like that, if the other guy you can just pair it with somebody else, whether they're finessing or powering on the other side, it can get spooky for other teams. It really can. I would like to see it again. Like, this is good. Like, if they can do that against Josh Allen, which will be huge because he's got much better pocket presence than Kirk Cousins. Like, compared to Kirk, Josh is basically Fran Tarkenton. Like, it's crazy. We'll see. So next week will be the real test. But I do think the ceiling is pretty high because they can complement each other so well. Boy has an array of moves, and D-Hall basically is one-trick pony right now, but it's one trick that works really well with other guys. Like, if D-Hall's collapsing and he's rushing next to Leonard, who's rushing next to Byron, like, that's where, damn the duo, it's that. It's with them working together. Look at me sounding like Mike Macdonald. It's a team thing. But it really it really is, though, because it all works together. And when that's really when you get the ceiling. Just having one really good pass rusher is only going to get you so much. Look at the Raiders. It's like they just have Max Crosby, and then that's it. Like, that's not going to get it done. That's why they went and paid Christian Wilkins. They were like, we need help. Even the Lions, they were like, we have Aiden, but we need other guys. So same thing. You need D-Hall and Boye, but you need that middle too. And I feel like their whole front has a really high ceiling, especially with Byron. I think Byron's really the key to making that work.
Speaking of Byron, this is from Rumpelstiltskin. How much of the defense resurgence on Sunday against the Falcons is or was due to Byron Murphy's return?
I would like to quote Byron Murphy here. He said prior to the game that he wanted to make the Falcons feel him because they passed on him in the draft. I asked him today, I said, did they feel you? He said, yes, sir. They felt me for sure. End quote. I thought he had a productive game. About as productive as you're going to get from a D tackle. I don't think he had a ton of tackles per se, but really disruptive. He had one of those TFLs on that third quarter drive that, again, ended in a touchdown, but I do think was the catalyst for the rest of the game because of the way it made the Falcons go away from the run. He had the pressure on Kirk that led to Julian's interception, which kind of helped pad that lead in the fourth quarter. So, yeah, I do think they felt him. I think, and that's just a few examples. There were others, but I think he had a solid game, and I think that, yes, he was part of it. You see that who did I highlighted somebody? Oh, Mike Morris and Jonathan Hankins. Oh, and Cameron Young. I highlighted them in my standout plays, like, for the wrong reasons. Well, Hank played less, and Cameron Young was inactive. Like, so there you go. Like, the coaches saw the same things I saw. It's really helpful to have Murphy back. He's a game changer. You see what Grady Jarrett can do for the Falcons. That's what Byron can do for the Seahawks. Very similar players, in my opinion. And like, Byron is just a younger version of that. Very similar to what Jalen Carter does for the Eagles. I do think he had a big presence today. The main thing with defensive tackles, like, a good way to gauge them, like, film is good too, but if you don't have access to film, it's just whether you felt them. And when I was leaving the game, I'm like, oh yeah, I could feel 91 was out there. Run game, pass game, all of it. Yeah, he's going to make a huge difference. Like, not having him was major. They don't have depth. He is the depth. Without him, there is no depth. So now they have depth. It changes everything. You rotate Leo, Jay Reed, and Murph, that's a squad. Just Leo and Jay Reed, that's a problem. So, yeah, Murph changes the math tremendously for their defensive line.
Tanner Cockerill, let me get this name right. Excuse me. Where has Josh Jobe been hiding? He made some great plays out there on Sunday against the Falcons.
Yeah, I think his coverage numbers ultimately, though, to kind of rain on this parade are probably not going to be great, which is fine. I mean, he's a practice squad call-up, first game, veteran quarterback, good receivers. It happens. But I really thought he was going to be like a player out of the draft. I'm pretty sure the Eagles drafted him. I'm about to pull up his little sheet. Let's see. It's his third season. I'm reading his bio right now. He was he was on the Eagles in 2022. I don't know why they got rid of him. He's undrafted from Bama. Yeah. I don't know why he went undrafted. I liked him coming out of Alabama. I think I might have had him on one of my mocks. You guys can probably go look and see. He's got some stuff, man. Pete Carroll would have loved this guy. I can see why John went and grabbed him, and I think Mike Macdonald shouted out John today. I don't think he was like Richard Sherman 2.0 or anything today. But I think he's got potential. I thought that in the draft. And so I wasn't totally surprised when he got called up in place of because Chris, if you think about it, they shouldn't have needed to call it up 2 corners because they have D Williams. Like D is a corner, like their main return guy is a corner, but he just doesn't play any corner. So I mean that's kind of whatever. I'm not the coach, but I wasn't surprised they chose Josh over him just because I haven't watched him much. Obviously, I don't get to watch practice, but I knew the name. I was familiar with it from like college. I was like, oh yeah, I like this guy. They should pick him up. So credit to John for scooping him. Credit to Carl Scott too, man. Carl can get some DBs right, man. He can. He knows how to coach some DBs. He also coached at Alabama. I don't know if they overlapped with Carl or if Josh overlapped with Carl or not. I think he did. So that probably helps. Chris, you might be able to help me out with that. I know Carl was at Alabama at some point. I don't know if it meshes with that. But either way, I thought he was okay. I got to watch the film. There's some coverage stuff where I circled number 29. That's when a guy gets beat. I circle 29, or I circle their name in my notes. We'll see how bad it was. Nothing egregious, I don't think. I think he got called for a DPI that I didn't feel good about in real time. I didn't see the replay of the DPI, so we'll have to see how bad it was. But yeah, I've always kind of trusted the Seahawks to put like competent corners out there, and I mentioned this earlier, the Falcons really only use one personnel grouping. When you do that, much easier to game plan. Like, I can see why they went with Artie Burns over Nehemiah Pritchett in the Niners game because, like, the Niners give you a lot of stuff to game plan for, whereas the Falcons are just like, here's 3 tight ends, here's Kyle Pitts, here we go. Now, pretty much, here's 3 receivers, and here's Kyle Pitts, here we go. So, much easier game plan. And I think it's easier. You can play on script, I think, a lot more. Like if the ball's not out after a certain time with Kirk Cousins, it's probably not coming out. If it is, it's not coming out deep. Whereas next week is much tougher. Much, much tougher. You might have to cover for like 4 or 5 seconds downfield with Josh Allen. So credit to Josh for doing his thing in his first start, I think first action all year. But yeah, next week is the real beast.
To help you out, Mike, yes, Josh Jobe was a part of that 2020 undefeated championship team alongside Carl Scott, who at that time he was the defensive coordinator under Nick Saban and Pete Golding. So, yep, he's familiar with Josh 1000%.
There we go. Thank you for that. Good pull.
Next up, this one is from DP Dipender 26. I hope I'm saying that right. Why are the defensive backs so far back from the line of scrimmage? It's so easy for the quick drop down and first down for quarterbacks.
Yeah, I think that's so the short answer for this is that's just how zone defense works. A lot of defenses are structured top down. So you just have your drops, you get to your landmarks, and then you work to the football. It's just easier to rally to the football. That's just like the short answer because you don't just only have the guy in front of you in a zone. If anyone comes into your zone, you have them as well. So unless you're just playing the flat, then you need to see more than just what's in front of you. You got to see what's coming. And in some cases, you got to see what's behind you too, particularly when you play teams that attack the middle of the field like the Falcons do. Like anyone in this scheme, Sean McVay-ish type of thing runs, they all attack the middle of the field off play action. So it's not just as simple as let's creep up because they're going to throw it short, kind of what we were talking about with the sticks and 3rd and 5 and the Tyler Lockett question. It's very similar to that. So it also there's a lot that goes into that too. Is there a blitz coming? What's the down and distance? Where are we at on the field? The Seahawks in general, I feel like are not a super heavy cushion team though, which is good because they trust their guys to cover. But today, I have to go back and look. Today, if there was a lot of cushion, it's almost obviously because they had a rookie making his first start and a practice squad call up making his first start on the other side. You gotta give them boys some cushion, man. He ain't just gonna bump and run. He ain't gonna bump and run that against Kirk Cousins, Drake London. Shoot, even Darnell Mooney was a good receiver. Like that's how you get blown out the game.
This next one comes from Chris Leeper at Rosebug_22. Defense seemed a little rough today, but a few big plays to counteract it. Are you hopeful the Seahawks can show up against Buffalo, or will it be more like what we saw against Detroit and San Fran?
I think it'll be completely different than any game that they've seen because of what I just talked about with Josh Allen. He the math is different. Like I feel like you can't play as much man coverage because if you don't want to turn your back to Josh, because he can literally run for a 50-yard touchdown on a scramble. That's just different math, you know? So there's that part of it. His arm is different. He's like Geno, where if there's a check down for 6 yards in front of Josh, but there's a deep shot 50 yards down the field in the double coverage, Josh will throw that ball. And so I feel like that changes the math as well. So you have to factor that in. Josh is a better pocket mover than anyone they will have faced, I believe, thus far. I'm pretty sure.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's not even
the closest thing.
Yeah, it's not even close. Yeah, thank you.
But yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's not even close. So you have to rush Josh differently, you know? You can't just come up field. You got to really rush together. I think that's huge. So I think that the plan has to look completely different. Really, honestly, that this is the game. I'm half joking here, but this is the game where if you can whatever drugs the NFLPA and the NFL allow that you can give Reek and Trey Brown to make sure their ankles is okay for about 2.5 hours on Sunday, you give them to them because those are the guys you really want covering, especially now that they have Amari Cooper. Their line is a lot better than some of the lines that the Seahawks have faced, offensive lines that is. So the run game I'm not as worried about. James Cook's tough to tackle, but no tougher than some of the other guys that Seattle has faced. Like David Montgomery is much tougher, I think, to tackle. Jordan Mason as well. So they've seen this before. Even Tyler Algier is a tough to tackle, but the coverage is the real big part for me because you have to cover a lot longer, be more disciplined. You can't just be all right. My man, the guy I'm covering, he broke inside, ball didn't come, so I'm all right. No, okay, but now your guy might flip his hips, break upfield. You got to cover that. Don't get handsy with the ball in the air. Like there's just so much stuff. Like this week of practice is going to be really important. It'll be really nice if they get Reek back. Really nice if they get Trey back. I feel like they're going to need those guys quite a bit. They really will. Run defense just kind of stay where it's at, but that the passing game with Josh Allen is really a different animal. I mean, Chris, you remember the last time they played Josh? They got barbecued in Buffalo.
And I'll say this right now. Josh has yet to throw an interception. 12 touchdowns, 0 picks.
Really?
Yes. He is on fuego.
Oh my God.
So I'm not saying he's going to turn the ball over against the Seahawks, but he has been really good with his decision-making. And that's just me going off of what I've seen on paper because I haven't watched all 22 and studied and done anything like that and watched him play ball. But just off the naked eye and seeing the stats, and now you have an Amari Cooper. They have a better run game. It's not, Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs. It's Josh Allen. We can hand it off. And now we have Amari Cooper that's going to open up for the young rookie. What's his name? Coleman?
Keon Coleman, yes.
Nonetheless,
I think went crazy today, yeah.
He did, and that's because of what? Amari Cooper coming to town and drawing multiple defenders. So to Mike's point about coverage is kind of the biggest thing he's worried about, and rush angles and making sure they're all in unison on the D line. Yeah, this is going to be probably their most difficult task. It's an AFC team, so it doesn't really matter, but this is a game you want to win, obviously.
Yeah, no, and yeah. Let's listen. We don't have to. We'll focus on Buffalo. Actually, let me text our Buffalo Ratter right now. get her set up for our Tuesday show. But yeah, I'm really the coverage is gonna be the big thing for me. Josh is just different. He just changes the math on what you got to do, how you got to rush. It's a lot. So Reek, come back. Trey, come back next week.
Thorsten checks in. How does this win change your view on the state of the Seahawks team, Mike? Even if it does or does not.
That's a good question. I don't think it does really. I really think they've got some flaws that they've got to address, but also, so I'm not worried about the offense per se because I really feel. I think I've said this before. I really think the offense is a sequencing thing and an attitude thing. I really think that if they commit to making sure 9 and 14 get the ball, they will be fine. And I feel like if the line, I feel like the line can run block well enough to be dominant, particularly if you're getting George back here pretty soon. Like I feel like the pieces are there. Defense, I feel like the injuries are gonna take a toll at some point. And I just, oh man, I really think Tyrese Knight should get another shot. I think so. I really do. Like I think that's a big thing. They're gonna need Chenna back to really make a push. But one thing that maybe has changed me a little bit, and this has nothing to do with the Seahawks, is that the Niners just have the worst ending. You think the Seahawks are banged up, boy. I saw what happened to Brandon Ayuk's leg today. Everything that ends with a CL looks like it tore. ACL, LCL, PCL, MCL. Everything looked like it just flew out of Brandon Ayuk's knee. And I think Debo was already banged up going into that game. They already don't have Christian McCaffrey. They couldn't run the ball today. Today against the Chiefs, I mean. Like, that's looking tough over there. Like a wound, and then the Rams are just hanging on by a thread. They won today, but they're just hanging on. Even if the Cardinals beat the Chargers today, today being Monday when you guys are listening to this, even if the Chargers lose today, which I don't think they will, like I still don't believe in the Cardinals. They are way too streaky. So like if the Seahawks even just back their way into a home playoff game, because everyone else is too damn banged up, I think that would maybe, increase the chances they could go on and run in the playoffs. But I really think the defense has really got to get healthier and really show me something over multiple games at all three levels. I really think they got to show me that. Today was a really good start. They got to build on that, though. And they got a chance, Chris, against they got some teams, man. If they could play solid, I don't know if they will, but if they could play solid, man, Bills, Rams offenses, I think they'll get cut back eventually. Get the bye week, Niners, Cardinals, Jets, Packers, Vikings, Bears, Rams. Yeah, I mean, you don't really get a crappy offense the rest of the year, depending on how you feel about whatever Cardinals team shows up. I have no idea. They're, like, again, really streaky, but there's really no, like, you should blow these guys out today type of offense, So they're going to get tested. I haven't changed my opinion that they're probably like at best a frisky wild card team, unless the Niners just implode, and they probably still are that. Because the Niners might implode. They very well could with all those injuries they have. I think Trent Williams got kicked out the game today. I think so. They're just all over the place. So, yeah, I think that's their best bet is the Niners just imploding, because if they have to just be a frisky wild card team, that doesn't move the needle for me. But if you can win a division, even if you back your way in, I think that's huge.
This next one comes from Shiv Ramdas. Question for the show: are the Seahawks good again?
Damn it! I knew somebody was going to ask me if they're good. Chris, I don't know. I don't know if the Seahawks are good. I don't know, man. I don't know. Are they? What do you think?
What is defined a good team?
Do you think they're good?
I would say no. They're not a good team yet.
Okay.
They're a competent team because they still have a lot
fair.
They still have a lot of issues that could plague them. For example, you miss this many tackles against the Buffalo Bills, they will lose 34-14. You have you have James Cook bouncing off of tackles and running around, as you saw Bijan Robinson did on Sunday against the Seahawks, those are explosive touchdowns because Josh Allen's going to find receivers. He can move in the pocket. You don't rush as a unit and get to Josh Allen, he will make you pay. So everything that they did okay against the Falcons, as Mike talked about, I think maybe 2 questions ago, especially in coverage, they're going to have to play far better. And a good team will be able to do those things. A good team would have done those things. Now, they're banged up. We saw guys from the practice squad that fans, listeners have never heard of stepping up and playing on Sunday. So, yeah, they're in a tough situation, but there's no excuse. You still have a week to prepare for these teams. You practice, you study it, you know what they want to do, or at least you're feeling like, hey, we see this lineup, we see what their personnel is, we think they're doing this, and you try to execute it. It's a game of chess. So now it comes into when you look at the last 7 weeks that they've played, they won 3 straight against 1 Denver team, as Mike mentioned, that's okay. A bad Miami team without Tua, and then you play that third game against the Patriots, the second game, the third game against Miami. The Patriots, not a good football team. And then, again, no Tua for the Miami Dolphins. They're not a good offense, all right? Cool. And then you lose 3 straight. That a good team doesn't do that. I will say that. And the Seahawks are in this limbo phase where were they a good team last year? No, they didn't even make the playoffs. So I would say no. Long story short, no, they're not a good football team. They're a competent team right now.
I agree. I thought about it some more while you were talking. I agree. I think they're an okay team. I think they're okay. I think they're about an average team. They do some things really well. They have some fatal. There's the thing about being flawed. Every team's got flaws. It just depends on how fatal they are and whether you can overcome them. Like one of them that I just can't get out of my head is that they lead the league in penalty EPA, which measures how impactful your offensive. This is on offense. How impactful their offensive penalties are. Because Chris, I think they've had like 4 touchdowns taken off the board because of penalties. Like that's a thing that's not what good teams do. And even today when they won by 20, they had it happen again, right? So actually, sorry, they're second. But you know who's number 1 in penalty EPA on offense? The Browns. And you don't want to be anywhere near the Browns. That's bad. So that's a fatal flaw to me. You can correct that. You can clean that up a little bit, but like that's something that legitimately worries me. So that's one. And then I'm just worried about the second level of the defense. Because I think even after today, they're probably still one of the worst teams defending play action. And that's a huge part of the good team's offense. Like every good team they're going to play uses play action for the most part. The Falcons are just one of the few. The Seahawks were the worst offense in terms of play action rate coming into this game. I think the Falcons were second. So like the only team that really doesn't. And it's probably why they were better today. But going forward, yeah, I think they're okay. They're okay. And I think to be good, I like how you quantified it a little bit. My version of good. Can you own the line of scrimmage against another good team? That's a good way on both sides. And I don't know about their ability to do that quite yet. That's the real. Can you own it on both sides? Can you protect your guy and get to their guy being the quarterback? Once the answer to that is yes, I'll say, yeah, it's a good team. Right now, they're an okay team. They're an okay team in a bad division. And you know what? Sometimes that's fine. Because, like, your division is really what measures everything. Because I think there are 4 good teams in the NFC North, but there won't be 4 playoff teams in the NFC North. That's just what it is. That you just can't get that. So, yeah, right now they're an okay team in a bad division, and we'll see if that changes this week.
Got 2 more, Mike. This next one comes from Chihuahua Loco. What do you think Jody's expectations are this year and next? And is John Schneider on the hot seat if the Seahawks miss the playoff this year?
Jody wants to compete for a championship. I don't think it's Super Bowl or bust per se, but definitely compete for it. Like missing the playoffs, inexcusable. Getting blown out in the wild card round, inexcusable. Basically, the last 2 results you can't have, or last 3 or whatever, you can't. Those are inexcusable. Like like Green Bay, the Green Bay year, where they went to the divisional and lost by like 5 or something or whatever it was. Like it came down to the last possession in essence. That I feel like no team wants that, but I feel like that's like you were competitive. You were one of the final, what would that be? 8 teams. You made the Elite 8 essentially. You know, like that's kind of, I feel like that'd be okay. But like, what in 2021 missed the playoffs? Shoot, even in 2020 they won a division and then lost at home in the playoffs by double digits, I think. So that's inexcusable. So I think Jody's expectations are for things to be better than they have been the last 4 years. That's the short version of that. And to piggyback off of that, I don't know. Hot seat is probably, I'd have to do some more reporting to definitively say hot seat, but I just think that if any of those results were to happen, I think everything has to be evaluated at that point. And it isn't like, all right, John, what do we do? It's like, let's talk without John and see if he's part of the problem. Now, they could easily conclude that he's not. But before in those previous years, it seemed like it was like, okay, John, how do we fix this? You know, whereas it might be like, how do we fix this? And do we do it with John, if that makes sense? So that's kind of where there's a lot of ball to be played. But like right now, week 7, that's probably the best way to put it.
Mike, you were there in person. How was the food? And this is from Michael Westgard.
I'm sorry, Michael, to disappoint you. I didn't eat at this game today. I ate breakfast at my hotel. Well, that's what it was. Because I couldn't remember if the food was good. So I didn't want to come here super hungry. And then the time thing, you know, as like I mentioned it just earlier in the show, I'm a dad, so I wake up real early. So I woke up, Chris, at like 7 a.m. And it was like, damn, I don't got to be there till 1. What am I gonna do all day? Like even the London game didn't start till 9:30, I think. So I was like, guess I'll just be up. I did the Wordle, I did the connections. I took a shower, you know. I realized I didn't pack deodorant, so I had to go down and grab some from the front desk. Like I just was like bored all morning, so that was a little weird. So I was like, I gotta eat something. So I don't want to wake up at 7 and not eat till noon. So I ate, and then by the time I got to the stadium, I just was like, I just need coffee. I'm not hungry. And then I had, you know what? I had a chicken burrito at halftime. That was good. It was just dry. And then I had some really disgusting pizza post game.
So stuff you should have mentioned. All right, bad food day.
Yeah. And then I ordered Zaxby's before we started recording, and that was amazing. So,
okay, made up.
There you go. There's my answer.
Well, look, we want to thank you guys for sticking around, watching on YouTube, listening via Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. We appreciate all the love and support. We got some more content coming to you. So if you are interested, all you have to do is go to TikTok, Seahawks Man to Man, Instagram, Seahawks Man to Man, and you have more and more content. We appreciate all the love and support. Mike, is there anything you'd like to add before we get out of here?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for all the love. Make sure you like and subscribe. Follow us on all of our platforms that Chris mentioned. Especially on social media. Any plays we're talking about, like we're more than likely going to clip those up and put those out as a visual so you can see what we're talking about. So that's where you can follow them. YouTube is kind of being jerks about clipping stuff on YouTube. So we got to do it on other platforms. So make sure you follow those so you can get better visuals of what we were talking about. Until then, we'll catch you guys later with our Buffalo preview show, our one big thing, and then standout plays later in the week. Have a good week, y'all. Peace.